in reliable knowledge, human judgment, and the social responsibility. How can education prepare a new generation not only to use AI, but to work with it wisely across disciplines and sectors? These questions require open, critical, and constructive dialogue across disciplines between academia and industry. Interdisciplinary AI imperative is therefore both a responsibility and opportunity. And at ACCCW, we believe in the role of bridge building in our mission. In the AI era, bridge building means in connecting scholarly inquiry with technological practice and humanistic values with industrial innovation. CCCW does not come to the AI imperative unprepared. A while ago, CCCW launched the social science platform for AI research coordination, or the abbreviation is called the Spark Lab, a research platform dedicated to integrate AI with the geopolitical and economic analysis. It's for free. You can look at our website. And early this year, through our leading age academic publication series, Dr. Wang Zhengyu, who will speak later today with us today, and his collaborators use AI to go through over 8,000 China-related bills introduced in the US Congress between 2017 and 2024 in these 8 years. On the surface, Democrats and Republicans look like they are more motivated in the same concern over China. The study shows they do not. And this is just an example of what AI-driven social sciences research can do, get beneath the surface of trends and behaviors in ways that conventional methods cannot. Now, in today's symposium, we have assembled a group of speakers from different disciplines and different professional grounds. We are particularly honored to open today's event with a keynote address from Professor Ma Yi. Professor Ma Yi, or we call Dean Ma Yi, is the director of School of Computing and Data Science. He holds a joint appointment at UC Berkeley. His research spans computer vision, high-dimensional data analysis, and the mathematical foundation of intelligence. He is among the world's leading authorities on these areas. Our first panel will be moderated by Dr. Richard Paddy, CCCW non-resident senior fellow, which is a policy advisor, entrepreneur, and academic who has lived and worked in Greater China since the 1990s. He has advised governments and institutions across more than 20 countries on the economics of technological disruption, and is the co-author of the international bestseller. The title is The Rise of Techno-Socialism. Panel 2 will be moderated by Tony Zhao, or in Chinese, Zhao Xiuye. He is a CCCW pre-doctoral fellow and a PhD candidate at the Tsinghua University School of Public Policy and Management. Tony previously served as director of Asia operations at the United States Legislation Leaders Foundation for many years, where he helped build US-China subnational legislative exchange mechanism. Our moderators will introduce our distinguished speakers in their respective panels. Now, a brief note about today's format. This event is open to the public and the live stream. I already checked that the YouTube already has a lot of people. You are welcome to take photos, but we ask that you refrain from recording or videotaping except the authorized media outlets. So please join me in warmly welcome our keynote speaker, Dean Ma Yi, to the stage.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for Dr. Professor Li Chen for inviting me, having me here. Honestly, that I do not pretend I'm an expert in social science or governance or I'm a very much an engineer and scientist. Try to understand the technology and the science of intelligence during my life. I worked on computer vision, try to understand how vision works, how to process high-dimensional data such as images, videos, and so on. Try to extract information. And so I think, but nevertheless, I share the same passion that we know that in the past 10 years, the artificial intelligence data science has very much revolutionized my field and the academia and the industry, technology. Now even start to have broader societal impact, even political impact, right? So hence I have a lot of conversation with Professor Li Chen. How can we work together, right? This is a sort of unprecedented technological revolution, but there's so much more misunderstanding, miscommunication, misleading information that not only affect the technological sector, also affect academia, as well as now potential affect the governance and also the society in broad. So of course, I will leave what is the societal or political or government issues to you, but my responsibility as a scientist or researcher about intelligence is to tell you what it is, right? I think all our judgment, policy, or management has to be based on what is honest information, our correct perception, understanding of the technology. Otherwise, we're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? And in fact, this is a trouble. I mean, this is not a problem just for the society, for people outside of the expertise of AI. In fact, even for the AI in academia itself, right? And we don't, despite the last 2 years, there's tremendous technological advancement, but there's still lack of scientific understanding about the subject, right? We don't understand the nature of it, right? There's no principles behind what we have done, accomplished. To a large extent, today's large model system, AI system is still very much black box to including the very top experts, okay? Hence, that it's become very imperative, even for the academia, even for people like me, become no longer to understand intelligence just as a, curiosity, right? But become a responsibility. We have to understand. So have to understand the basic, not just application, not the big models, not just the resources. It's really what is intelligence, what we understand about it, right? That will guide us not only in terms of science, in terms of technology, but in terms of policy for AI, for intelligence. So let's just capture that, right? So if we don't understand what we're doing, we're just a whole bunch of blind men with a black box, right? And about intelligence, also this topic fascinates everyone, right? The weird thing about this is everybody, we think we know what intelligence is, but we believe, each one we believe we're intelligent, right? We know something about it, right? The fact is quite the opposite, right? Yes, we use it on a daily basis, but very much understanding what intelligence is, we have barely scratched the surface, right? As a scientific topic, right? Hence, you can see in the past 10 years, despite the amazing, fast-paced technological, allow even some of the top experts start to see things that are anti-science, common sense, okay? But yet we worship people say those things, okay? Oh, deep networks is all you need, right? Reward is all you need. Whenever we see a little bit taste of reinforced learning, reward is all you need. AlphaGo, after AlphaGo, everybody says that, right? And we see a little bit of transformer. Attention is all you need, right? And now foundation model is all you need. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, right? So whoever has said this in history, right? So, but yet, nobody stand up from the academic community to challenge this kind of claims, right? Using the same scientific rigors, the same types of scientific principles, the same kind of scientific standards to challenge those, right? It's completely anti-scientific common sense, right? Now, of course, what does this lead to, if we keep this, just like a history, we know everything about history. If there's something black box we don't understand, but yet mysterious, but yet impactful, right? It always leads to what? Some people is going to manipulate it, manipulate people's curiosity, manipulate your fear about it, right? That's why superstitions arises, right? Even religions arises behind it, right? People want to become the witches, wizard, even popes, right? China, a lot of people 就想当巫师、国师，对吧？ Actually, a lot of them want it. Why? Because there's power associated with it, right? They want to monopolize things. They generate power. You guys understand this better than engineers like me, okay? How that leads to, right? There's a lot of, big models going to surpass human now, right? Big model is become conscious, right? It's going to destroy humankind, right? And they're just like a nuclear bomb. They're like a virus to wipe us, right? All over the world. It's going to. Very respectful people say things like this, okay? I don't know the reason, right? There's absolutely no scientific basis, evidences for any of those claims. It's okay for someone say things like this as his personal opinion, but don't go out advocate as scientific conclusions. But that's very, very dangerous, right? And a lot of company does these things, right? There's a high correlation between company like OpenAI, Anthropic say crazy things about their models. You can find that whatever they say that synchronize perfectly with when they're raising the next round of money. Okay? Right? Just check. You guys are better at the social science. Do a checking. Okay? Whatever, oh, my model becomes conscious now. The model, oh, the whole entire industry will be out of jobs, right? See what happens with Anthropic. They're going to go IPO, right? They say crazy things about, oh, model is completely, out of the world. We're afraid to release it. Yes, they released it, nothing happened, okay? Right, hence the government gets scared. Say, oh, they will prohibit, we're going to, this will have political implications, right? They really shoot themselves in their own feet, right? So they're going, oh, your model is so powerful, then foreign government, foreign individuals cannot use it. Actually, the White House just banned the latest model, right? So this is the latest quote from Yang Long. The ridiculous fear mongering about their latest model, one reaps what one sows, right? 我们说的这个完全是就是损人不利己，对吧？But anyway, so things like, but how do we put them in check? As I said, industry make things better, but academia make things right. Right? Our job is to keep them honest. So we have to understand. Right? Our job is to let the society, let the public, let the government understand what the nature of the technology is. Right? Then you guys better be the judge based on the right, make informed decisions about what policy. Just a couple of years ago, right? Last year, because the first round of mongering, I don't know, just check who said that it's virus, nuclear bomb, right? Right? The first letter, public letter from Hinton says it's virus and bombs. 2 months later, the ban, embargo of the chips to China and the rest, meaning of the world, right? Then the second letter to NIH about the danger of quote unquote of AI. A month after that, even they stopped selling 4090, 有游戏机的卡，显卡 stop selling that to China. Okay? So you can see, technology and the policy, there's a lot of connection there. You guys are the better experts, right? You start to have this kind of weird, even California, we believe the most educated, right? State almost passed a bill to forbid open source models and data by last year. The governor vetoed it. It actually passed the Congress, passed the Senate. Right? Of course, a lot of academia like me, Yang Kun, and Fei Fei will actually stand up against it. But you just see how close the government makes such a stupid decision, right? Well, see, today for me, right, I'm really just an engineer, but we see the things we work on start to have a lot of political, a lot of societal, connection, both good and bad, right? So how to regulate, how to make the politicians to make the right policy, to govern it. What should be governed? What should not be governed? Right? So we have to tell people, we have to make intelligence study as a really scientific and theoretical foundation for that. Today, I want to give you just a flavor, but even from the understanding intelligence, is truly today's theme is about interdisciplinary, right? So, of course, we are cross aisle between science, technology, and the society. But first, I mean, my expertise that I'll tell you, even the intelligence itself within the science and technology is a multi interdisciplinary effort. Has to be, right? Even for us just to understand intelligence. Why intelligence is important, right? Well, there are only two problems in the world, right? Worth study. One is where the universe come from, where it's going. That's what the top subject of physics is trying to understand. Another subject is where the life come from. What's the mechanism behind life, right? And intelligence is exactly the physics for life, right? For universe. Intelligence is about studying the mechanism behind life, right? And just like the quote, right? The increase of entropy is the basic law of the universe. The second law of thermodynamics, right? The world is becoming increasingly random, right? Well, this year, last couple of years, become even more so, right? So it is a basic law of life is to ever more highly structured and struggle against entropy. So we're trying to identify orders in a semi-random world. Okay, that's the basic characteristic of intelligence about life, and use that for prediction, right? So why people today, this time, people are always confused that, oh, we're trying to achieve general intelligence, right? General AI, AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence. They start to add all kinds of adjectives in front of intelligence. Embodied AI, spatial intelligence, all kinds of adjectives, right? Adaptive AI, super intelligence, and so on and so forth. Well, actually, it turns out it's quite embarrassing, right? The whole academia, we're actually confused the two things. We confuse what's knowledge, what's intelligence, right? From the first principle, what is the first principle behind intelligence? Intelligence tries to gather useful information, predictable information from the external world. Use that to reduce our uncertainty in our prediction, right? But the system should have the mechanism to self-acquire knowledge and self-correct it, right? That's the mechanism. So 自论is a capacity, is a capability, right? That capability is actually already generalizable. But the knowledge is never truly generalizable, no matter how much, 对吧? Even scientific knowledge is falsifiable, can be improved, can be corrected, right? But the intelligence, true intelligence, once you realize it correctly, it's generalizable. Ants have intelligence. It's generalizable. You can put them in the forest, you can put them in the desert, you can put them in my house. They survive perfectly, okay? But it's just a matter of capacity, bigger, smaller, and so on, right? So GPT, today, all the big models, they have a lot of knowledge. They accumulate a lot of students, people's knowledge, but they don't have intelligence like our baby. Now I probably understand why Yang Kun says, right? Today's big model does not even have the intelligence as cats and dogs or even child, okay? All this concept gets mangled together, gets really mixed together, right? And look at the evolution of intelligence in nature, right? There's 4 stages: phylogenetic, ontogenetic, right? 物种之论, 个体之论, individuals, societal, right? Human being as a societal, and the scientific, right? That's really the 4 stages. If you talk about the 基点, the singularities, those are the 4 singularities, right? Today, so this is ridiculous in the past 10 years. All the engineers, right, show how ignorant we are, okay? Some people see some phenomena with their algorithm, something they don't understand. They call, oh, it's a singularity. Oh, it's something amazing we have never seen before, right? So the bar of singularity, the bar of things becomes so low that you start mix what's significant and what's not, okay? So, and also good. So this is actually tells you just intelligence actually, the true origin of machine intelligence actually started with 1940s, try to make machines to be able to emulate the kind of humans, right? And how we build memories to predict the world, right? Today, there's a very fancy name for world memory called a world model, right? So anyway, nothing new is under the sun, just to change the names, right? And also connection to science. I don't want to say, right? So intelligence is a science, right? How do we, intelligence and science actually try to do the same thing, right? Try to predict from the sense data of external world and try to learn what's predictable. Cats, dogs, everybody, you're doing this, just like physics is doing, but we just encode the knowledge in different language, codebook. Mathematically, yes, you actually can write down this precisely what the mathematical problem behind what is the predictable information. This data has very special properties, universally common properties. You actually can formulate this problem and also try to find the data lies on very low dimensional subspaces. Now you understand why all scientific knowledge is written down in equations. Each equation reduces the possibility by one more dimension. Okay? There are 17 equations changing the world, right? Now you understand, aha, right? Now you why they're not written in inequalities, right? So also connects to neuroscience, right? Life, right? So it turns out this is exactly what our memory does. You know, animals, monkeys, humans actually precisely try to identify what's parsimonious, what's predictable about the world, and store that, organize that in our brain in a very highly structured way, right? So that I can use it repeatedly for prediction and also repeat it to continuous. And of course, we study this phenomenon intelligence. Intelligence is probably more important than physics. Why? Once we understand the mechanism, we can realize it, we can implement it, right? We can imitate it, right? Hence, that it connects directly to computing. We have to understand the computational mechanism behind it, right? From what's incomputable to computable to tractable to scalable to actually getting close to the level of efficiency of nature. Right? So right now we are at the scalable version, right? So that's why if you're a billionaire or trillionaire like Elon Musk, you can still play, right? If you have a 10,000 GPUs or 100,000 GPUs, you still can afford, which means scalable, scaling law. However, nature does not have that option. I only have 10 watts, okay? I only eat 3 meals a day, right? Nature is much, much more efficient in that way, right? We are still 8 or 9 magnitude away from the kind of efficiency. So if you think about what the level of we are at that level. We're still way behind. So, as hence, really right now, right, what we really want to see is that we really have to make intelligence as a scientific theoretical foundation, right? This is already, I believe, this is a field, intelligence, if you emerge as a scientific topic, it's just as important, probably even more important than physics. It's already interdisciplinary, means that it is a final frontier that will have to integrate science, life science, and also mathematics, and the computer science, and the technology together, okay? So that's actually truly, so if you wanted to finally address, connect a little bit of what we are now, right? Right now, we are very much at this stage, right? Very much at the DNA, early primitive stage of life, right? Big models are just DNA, nature's DNA, right? We just inherit some knowledge. The big model just inherit all the knowledge human has accumulated so far and regurgitate it. Just like DNA, we inherit from our parents, we use it, okay? But the DNA itself does not have self-evolving mechanism, not at the individual level, species has, right? So hence, the next stage is really trying to make individual, just like a dong, like animal, human. We have our brains to be able to accumulate our own memory about the world. Significantly improve the individual's adaptivity, right? We call it autonomous intelligence, 自主智能, right? So we're actually pretty much getting there. We're still far from what we call true artificial intelligence at the humans level, right? So hence we're going to this, right? That's why you can see there's a trend that is in academia going from language and encoded by language, right, to physical world, like physical world, physical intelligence, right? Autonomous intelligence, how to model three-dimensional world, understand our physical body, right? To be able to interact, to be able to have a fully closed self-learned system. And now people actually start to working on physical systems rather than intelligence behind the screen. You can see a lot of big models, they're just intelligence behind the screen, right? Generating text, generating images, looks pretty. But if you want to bring those into the real open world, right? Navigation, we're pretty much done. Locomotion, yes, you can dance around. But keep in mind, navigation and locomotion, they're not a purpose. They're means to the end, so that we are be able to manipulate, interact with the world, right? But the truly is that manipulation. How do we be able to emulating, truly interact with the world through our hands, through our action? That's where, 所以我说嘛，对吧？人工智能的下半场在人的上半身 ，right？ 所以这个 So right, so why everybody is building the legs? Why humanoids, right? We walk on two legs is never wearable down, right? We walk on two legs is never the purpose. So现在很多人 we're actually mixing what is the purpose and what's the means to the end. Okay, we sacrificed, we lose stability, we lose speed, so that we free this. So the most highly concentrated intelligence is on your upper body. Okay, eye, brain, hands. Okay, in nature, nothing else. Okay. 下半身实际上是没那么 smart, okay? Right. So now there's also an impact. Even in the technological, there's a lot of reform, right? So even the old system, I want to say why this is a multidisciplinary approach is that this completely is a new model of intelligence, right? So there's a lot of emerging so-called neo labs. What does that mean is that, see, in the past, the company does innovation product, right? University does all the fundamental research, but AI, for many of the intelligence, is such an integrated effort. It requires resources far beyond the university can afford, right? Salaries of those researchers, right? You know, my student this year graduated from Berkeley, 4 students. One of them, their salary, anyone can guess?
What are yours?
No. I'm not even the. I'm not. Even the sign-up bonus is way below that money. Right? So, that's probably 10 years ago's the salary. A couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, the salary is already typical salaries for top PhD students from Berkeley, Stanford is already about $1 to $2 million. This year is 8 figures, 10 million US dollars. Okay, fresh PhD, no job experience. Right. Go figure, right? So Meta just scooped 2 people from us, right? Assistant professor. I won't tell you their salary, otherwise 让你很不平衡啊，这个。So the point is that human is expensive, data is expensive, compute expensive. So a lot of research requires resources, right? So they form this called Neo lab. So this is what the scale, right? Yang Kun just established a company called the Advanced Machine Intelligence, raised about $1 billion, right? Fei also, right, $10 million. And this is just the recent list, right? Thinking Machine, 20 million to 2 billion. And ADMI, 1 billion. World Labs, 1 billion. And Physical Intelligence, 400 million already, right? Recursive API is about 600 million, right? This is a new form, right? Industry, top research academias, and technological works together. Right. This is a Hong Kong, right? Again, where there's a lot of, we have to, in the sense that we're forced to work with the industrial resources. Academic resources is not enough for us to push some of the boundaries anymore, right? We're forced to take money from the industry or the society and to get us to the scales, right? So you can see the money raised is always at 100 millions of China. I see in Chinese yuan, right? We're not US dollars, but very much at the same scales, about similar, but in terms of Chinese dollars, Chinese yuan, okay? So that's already taking place. So all this happens very, very quickly, right? In the past few years, right? We can no longer, if we want to pursue the nature of intelligence, even as a scientific topic, as a technological topic, as a research topic, right? We already see that unprecedented integration between science, mathematics, computer science, and technology, right? This is already happens in science, STEM, right? Let alone, of course, the nature of this technology will impact industry, will impact society, will impact government now. So now, but I think those policy or decision, how they should be governed, how they should be regulated, should be based on very clear understanding on the technological side, a very objective, scientific understanding what it is, rather than based on social media or the Wikipedia or Elon Musk tweets, right? So if you keep getting your information about the AI from those resources, you're doomed, okay? Trust me, okay? All right, thanks.
do the alphabetical order.
That was a fascinating keynote. We'll lead on from that with the first panel. So welcome to the first panel of the AI Symposium. This panel is going to look at the intersection of AI and the economy. And the question animating the panel here today really is, what does artificial intelligence do to an economy? And what does an economy do to AI? To explore that, I'm joined by three panelists. Allow me to introduce them. To my far left, I have Dr. Will Wang. Will is an Associate Professor of Management and Strategy at Hong Kong U Business School and Director of the AI Implementation Lab at Hong Kong U. His work sits at the intersection of economics, technology, business strategy, and data science, which is to say that he works precisely at the fault lines where today's most consequential disruptions are occurring. Dr. Luo Ye is Associate Director of the Institute of Digital Economy and Innovation and Associate Professor at Hong Kong U Business School. Ye's research brings machine learning to bear on empirical questions in economics and finance, including developing smart, adaptive, automated trading systems, work that puts him at the frontier of where algorithms meet markets. And then to my immediate left is Mr. Li Luodan, who is founder and CEO of Rabbite Technology, with your main product being Alpha Pi. An AI-powered financial data and key productivity solutions provider. Dan oversees strategic development, corporate culture, and key product initiatives, meaning that he's the person who has to make these ideas work in practice at speed and under real competitive pressure. I'm going to ask each of our panelists a question in turn that they've briefly seen, and then we'll move to general discussion and leave some time for questions from all of you. So please have questions ready for the last 5 or 10 minutes. And we're going to go for 50 minutes, I think, Mally, I think that's right, 50 minutes. Okay, my question to you, Will. We hear constantly that AI will transform productivity, but productivity statistics in most advanced economies remain stubbornly sluggish. Are we in a measurement problem, a diffusion lag, or is there something else going on?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Richard, for that already kind introduction. And thanks to the organizer for bringing us together for this panel. I very much look forward to this discussion. So on that question, it very much reminds me of this famous quote I think a lot of us have heard from the Nobel laureate economist Robert Solow, who said famously in the 90s that I see computers everywhere except for in the productivity statistics. Right. So in some sense, what you're describing, Richard, is not new. It almost happened in every single general purpose technology that happened in history: steam engines, electricity, IT technology, and now AI. And this is what economists later described as the J curve of productivity curve, which is after GPTs or general purpose technology happens, you actually see a dip in productivity before it goes up. Right. So generally, we think the problems, and maybe we're biased because our strengths as economists are, think about how societies organize themselves, organizations organize themselves around technologies. So the problem is the organizations have to reorganize themselves around the new technologies in order to unleash the productivity gains that are accompanied by these general purpose technologies. right? So, for example, let me give you one theory of why we're not seeing productivity gains from AI today. This is what Darun Asimoglu and co-author describe as the weak link problem, right? So I'll give you an example, which is, so what they're saying is the economic progress is not constrained by what we're really good at improving, but is constrained instead by what's really essential for productivity to gain, and that's really hard to improve, right? So so AI is obviously, don't get me wrong, AI is obviously incredible technology, but firms, in order to be able to adopt it, firms are production systems, right? They're made up of tasks, teams, handoffs, human-machine interactions, compliance processes, and data and legacy systems that no one truly understands and everyone is really afraid to touch, right? So I'll give you one specific example. Take coding as example, right? So obviously today, AI writes incredible amount of code with really high fidelity, but especially for mission critical code, you still have to review the code. And in order to review the code, if AI generates a ton of code, at the end of the day, you're just pushing the work stream from generating the code to reviewing the code, right? So we're already seeing a lot of AI native firms that are kind of having less engineers to actually write the code, but have more engineers that are working on kind of model evaluation, code reviews, data governance, and things that are related to the process of production, right? So you're just moving the production down the pipeline. Now, I give you two kind of empirical facts, I think, that are related to this, which is number one, there's a very paper that I really like from last year that came out of Stanford and Carnegie Mellon that says, if you just give all the tools to humans and delegate tasks and let them use AI tools for their existing standard corporate computer-based work, you can see roughly something like a 24% productivity gain. So it's great. And then if you just let AI automate all the work, and then you let the humans debug and then check all the code, you actually get an 18% slowdown in the work process because there's such a huge amount of work that humans are going to have to review, debug, and etc. Right? Now, for one specific task, they redesigned the workflow and they let the humans do what the AI agents are terrible at, and let the AI do what's programmable. And then at the end, they were able to achieve 69% gain of productivity. Right, so obviously incredible numbers that should give us optimism. But then if you look at the other side of the coin, there are many surveys in the world now that basically says the adoption of AI is really wide. Everybody is experimenting with AI, but it's really shallow, right? So very few firms are seeing significant gains. So I think combining those facts gives us a very powerful point, which is it's really not technological at this point. It's organizational. Obviously, the technology is still progressing really fast. But I think even if you froze AI technology today, if we shut down all the AI labs or say don't develop further, I think we still have a long way to go for organizations to catch up in terms of how do we unlock those productivity gains.
And yet the promise would seem to be seen in the market capitalization of the companies that are leading the way here. Just as a thought bubble, if one looks at the market cap for NVIDIA, we're at about 5 trillion. And then Google and Apple are well north of 4 trillion. You take the top three combined, you're about 13 trillion. The GDP in nominal terms for Japan is about 4.3 trillion. So obviously not equivalent by any stretch, but there is massive value being factored into the market. Economic value being factored into the market capitalizations of these firms. So what is the market seeing that we're not yet seeing in the productivity stats? Is it that it's a micro level task focused improvement, but it's not showing up at the macro level? Is that for regulatory reasons, or is it the workforce isn't catching up yet in aggregate?
Yeah, I think if you look at market cap, those are expectations, right? So we think. And that's true for any technological cycles, right? Like when the mobile tech first came about, the first beneficiaries are Qualcomm, right? Or firms who build those towers that broadcast signals over spectrum. And then it becomes kind of the handset manufacturers, Samsung, Apple, and then it becomes the app ecosystem, right? So there's a cycle of technology. I think now it's the same. If you look at the market for AI, a lot of investments are going into infra. right? And then it's going to go into kind of the middle layer where you coordinate agents and things like that. And then eventually it goes into software and then firms unleash productivity. So it's going to take time, but all the market cap are basically expectations. We think this is very optimistic. That's why some people say it's bubble, but, I think we've seen enough potential that this could unlock. We're just not, firms on the ground, like boots on the ground, when employees actually reformulate themselves, teams reformulate themselves around this technology, there's a lot of difficulties. So I think it just takes time for that to happen.
Ye, a question for you. Financial markets are among the most data-rich, fastest moving environments on Earth, and yet also among the most adversarial. Everyone's trying to outsmart everyone else. That's been my experience in the financial market. My question for you is, as AI becomes ubiquitous in trading and financial decision-making, does it make markets more efficient, or does it introduce new potentially systemic inefficiencies?
Okay, first of all, thank you for the commentator and for the organizer, Professor Li Chen, for this great event. And so I'm China as an economist originally, but oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, sure. So during my career, I've been working on machine learning and AI, gradually getting into this interdisciplinary, this joint field. The financial market is always getting more and more efficient in some sense. If you look at the Chinese financial market 10 years ago, and it's going to be very easy to get 20, 30, 40% of the alpha returns, excess returns to the market. But if you look at that today, just using simple machine learning doesn't do the job at all. So it's getting more efficient. This is because the financial market is highly competitive. That's the nature. And I have been talking to many of the financial institutions in the past 2 years regarding on their AI adoption, including banks, insurance companies, regulators, and of course, hedge funds. Everybody wants to use AI. Some funny story, some of the largest banks in China tell me that they have made over 10,000 AI agents during, like 2025 or something like that. And I'm asking, how many of them do you really put them into practice? And, they become silent. So I mean, that's the reality, is that industry, they have the AI favor. But let's be realistic, how much real financial problems can this AI solve for you? Okay. So several days ago, I was on a conference with 4 or 5 for example, head of strategies or CTOs from the top hedge funds like Jiukun, Huanfang from China, and most of them, they're just selling, so they're just telling you that the way that they use AI mostly is to help them to do better research. So it's like workflow stuff, and of course, I mean, they may have a good incentive to not to tell us, how do they use AI to build their trading strategies. So they're talking more on the operational side, but the reality is, so one of the classes that I have learned in the past, which I still remember, is that there's a professor called Andrew Lo from MIT Sloan School of Management. And he says that the reason that finance or the financial market is efficient is because that everybody is trying to predict everybody else. And the losers are just going to die. So the competitiveness level is just going to make the market more and more efficient. And I think this also works for artificial intelligence as well. So, it's, the strategies are going to converge as long as they are developed based on the same type of scientific principles, for example, machine learning or AI, and they're just going to converge. They're going to buy data from all sorts of vendors, and they're going to apply all sorts of algorithms, whatever they have, and they're going to hire the best PhDs or whatever the students they can get. So in the end, it's going to be efficient. It's going to be more and more efficient. And and of course, at the end of the day, there's a question that whether you're going to have more risk or additional kinds of risk. The answer is yes. Since actually, if you look at the quant trading industry, since basically somewhat time at 2000s, we see more and more flash crash where these algo traders they're going to sometimes we call that crossfire sale. So making the financial market more volatile, or sometimes they can have crashes or whatever. And this is also true in, for example, the Chinese financial market as well. And because you can see, we have been observing that the volatility has been surging because of algo trading and all kinds of quant. And that's a reality. That's some kind of reality. Yeah. So I hope this would answer your question. Yeah.
It does, and it brings a follow-up, which is intelligence is becoming cheaper. AI is making intelligence cheaper. And then if we look at information asymmetries are being removed, but economic asymmetries are not. There's a huge concentration of capital, value, and wealth increasingly in the hands of fewer and fewer people and companies.
Yeah.
So what are the distributional effects of this? What impact does that have on the markets in terms of trading volumes, who derives the value? Because there is a case to be made for the larger firms having more efficient information, everyone having more efficient information, intelligence being diluted away because everyone's got access to super intelligence. But then those who already have the capital and already have the power and the regulatory ability or the enablement that regulatory shift gives them to capture all that value. What do you say in response to that argument?
Yeah, I would just say that the concentration is a natural consequence of the market structure and the economic mechanisms. For example, if you look at high frequency trading, basically it's like heavy. It's like very heavy, equipment driven, right? So you have to be very fast, you have to be very accurate, and you need to invest a lot of money in the beginning. And that's why what we see is that in the high frequency trading market, there's only a few players, major players. It's like oligopolies. In the United States, we have a paper. In the United States, 60% of trading volumes goes to two companies. Actually, one is Citadel, the other is Jane Street. And over 90% of the trading volume goes to top 6 hybrid traders. And that's obviously not a free market, right? That's an oligopoly market. And the regulators, are having a hard time to basically to constrain them from collusion or whatever. I mean, there's a specific field in social science or economics called algorithmic collusion. We're studying how AI is collude and because we like the market to work efficiently, but there's a great tendency in all kinds of experiments that AI algorithms, they have a great chance to collude, and they have this is because they are using more or less the same algorithms to train. They use more or less the same kind of state variables to make decisions, and that makes collusion possible. And this is making the regulations very difficult. Yeah. Because the regulators are not going to read through tens of thousands of lines of codes and say, well, you're doing collusion. Yeah.
Dan, following on from Ye's comments, you're dealing with customers every day. So you're at the coalface of this in terms of meeting customer need and market expectations. And therefore, my question to you is a very practical one to begin with. What is the gap between what your clients expect or expect AI to be able to deliver based on what they're reading and what they're hearing and what you're able to deliver? And then How do you bridge the trust or the expectations gap that may exist as a result of that?
Thanks, Richard. It's a great question. And thanks, Professor Li Chen, for inviting. I might be the only one who is from the industrial background, so I can give you some color from the very front line of our business. We created AlphaPy in 2023, and back then it was GPT 3.5, and we were among the first batch of startups that are implementing AI for investment research. That being said, our major customers or users are PMs, analysts for A-share and H-share market. So we have around 100,000 users and over 7,000 institutions that use our AI on a daily basis. And the core problem is around how can we build trust with our users. I think if I use one word to explain that, I think that's a feedback loop. So we just said that we have the first half of the game maybe already ended. The game is about investment on CapEx, investment on infrastructures. It's about how can we create better intelligence, higher intelligence. And we did it for 3 years. And suddenly we figured out that at the end of the business world, maybe the influence or the positive side has not shown up yet, or not as fast as we think. And I can say from my end, I experienced the same problem because this year our cost is moving so fast, partly thanks to those students from PhD students, AI PhD students, and partly from very exponentially growth of token. For last 2 months, our token raised 10 times in last two months. So there's definitely a gap between how we use AI and how AI can really raise our revenues or really raise our productivities. And how we did is that actually users use OpenAI and the cloud on a daily basis. But why they still need a vertical AI? What's the use of a vertical AI? I think if the first principle for a large language model is the ability, which means if you're a large language model, you'd better be the soda model. Otherwise, no one will use your model, or you will be a second player, third player, and second player or third player, their valuation, the market valuation is much lower than the first one, the SOTA model. But for the vertical AI, the game is different. It's all about whether you have access to the real end users, the professional vertical users, such as the financial analysts, such as the doctors, such as the lawyers who use AI on a daily basis, because the last mile of the question, the last mile of the problem is the real problem. As we just said, there's a lot of problem about data. If this company or this institution is ready, if they have enough proprietary data, and then harness engineering, right? If the engineering is right for them to really compose the right workflow into their own institutions. So there are a lot of problem in the last mile of the business. And then the last mile of the business, I think, compose 90% of the value, business value in the real world. So I think what we see today, whether it's OpenAI, Anthropic, or all the upstream companies, they might not be the biggest companies in the future. But the vertical AI and the vertical AI who solve the real world problem, who create the productivity and GDPs, they are the real players in the future. And I think there's still 1 to 2 years of gap existing in this market right now. So from our experience, our product actually went through 3 stages. First of all, I think back in 2023, I think AI is a tool. We have AI meeting minutes, AI meeting bots that can help you to log into different meetings at the same times. So you have a 1,000 or hundreds of digital twins that can write meeting minutes or memos for you. So back then, I think AI was a tool. It helped us to lift our efficiency, and it helped us to be more concentrated on what is more important rather than spend so many time in those online meetings. And then in 2024, when O1 come, the reasoning model come, it becomes the first time I think it become an assistant. It can write 1 page for company research, investment research, industry research, start screening for me. And then last year, AI evolved even faster because of the whole coding, because of the multimodal capabilities. And then we create the integrated research environment, which is a system that can make AI work in parallel with you and evolve with you. It has memories. It can have a very, very long dialogue with you. It have all your memories, all your private data connected into those systems. So today, if you ask me, what are we making in the future? I think we are making a cognitive basement or cognitive systems for those investors to construct their, not information, but their cognitives and their understanding of the world throughout interaction with AI. And once we invented that AI, it will evolve. It will do online learning, right? It will evolve with our clients and our users. And once we've done that, the world cannot go back anymore. It will just moving faster, faster, and faster. So that's what I see on the front line of our business. And I think it's a little bit, so every day I'm actually a little bit anxious because there are so many large language models launched every day, and we have to test out every single one. But I think in the end, what really important is trust. The trust comes from memory. AI have know your all past and your data, private data, public data, and know your behaviors and evolve with you. And then I think the trust is something that any other large language model with a higher capabilities, it cannot replace. So that's, I think, from that end, I think vertical AI in the future has huge opportunities that can, really make the story come true at the revenue end, not the cost end. Yeah. Hope I answered the question.
You answered it very well. All of the leading players in the industry presently would agree with you that we're at the start of the AI journey, really at the beginning of the AI journey. And so there's a great unknown in front of us. But what they also all agree on is that AI is a massive structural shift economically. And so there are big questions about what that means and what the implications of that structural shift are. One of the biggest ones being that's relevant to this panel, who captures the value? So there's a distributional question as to AI, because AI may well increase aggregate output, and there's plenty of evidence that it's doing that and help at a micro level for tasks. But the historical pattern of technology adoption that Will outlined in his opening remarks is that gains concentrate, at least initially, in the hands of owners, capital providers, relatively few people, and highly skilled workers. This time it's a bit different. Highly skilled workers, some of them yes, some of them no. Already we're seeing evidence of that. But in any event, we look historically, displacement economically and in terms of jobs falls mainly among mid-tier and low-end workers, And we're seeing that happening again, except in areas of manual dexterity and so on that can't be easily replicated by AI. So do the economics as you see them, and this is a question to the panel in general, support the idea that this distributional value is a real concern now? Where do you see value being created and captured? And what are the implications of that for the broader economy through your lens?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it. I don't have all the answers, but here's how I think about it. So I think one is on the concentration of firms, and the other kind of the distributional effect among labor. On firms, I mean, I think the big firms are capturing a lot of value today, partially because now it's a lot of CapEx driven and they're more resourceful. So it's easier for the big firms to accrue a lot of gains at this point. And then two, I think it's going to evolve to the point where the companies that have the business settings, that have the data, that have the customer relationships, these are the kind of things that are complementary to AI capabilities that are going to gain a lot out of this evolution, which means the concentration is going to become more concentrated in industries because those tend to be larger firms. On the other hand, from the organization perspective we just talked about, I think there's also a lot of one-person companies. Every time there's a new technology that comes about, like the native companies that born out of this new era are going to be firms, because it's very hard for firms like Microsoft that has like 200,000 employees to completely reorganize themselves around a new technology. But it's fairly easy for me to come out and say, hey, I'm starting a new company. It's just me with like 200 agents, right? So I think that part of like innovators' dilemma in organizations is going to play in the favor of the smaller guys. So I think that's on the firms. On the labor distribution, I think I'm not super pessimistic in the long run in terms of like we're all going to be out of jobs, and but because history has told us like every time this happens, there's a lot of fear and anxiety, but we always created more jobs, right? Like I think we're already seeing that a little bit in the sense, if you look at job postings for software engineers in the US, it went down dramatically when ChatGPT first came out and copilots and kind of async coding agents, but then now it's starting to come back. Right, so a lot of software engineer jobs are not writing code anymore. They're reviewing code. They're designing agentic systems. So new jobs are already being created. And then the other thing I would say is like in the short to medium term, there's going to be pain in a lot of job displacement. So I think that's where policy would come in and think of things like, there's a lot of, I think, good ideas being thrown around, like universal basic capital, where every citizen has a share of the pie. We have ownership of the success of the economy, or things like wage insurance. If you get displaced, you're insured against the wage difference, which is different from like unemployment benefits, which encourage you to not work, whereas wage insurance would encourage you to work and then pay that difference between wages. I think their policy gap kind of bridges that bridge you over to the longer term.
Okay, so let me add a few more points to Will. So labor economists always discuss about a concept called inequality. Okay, and even before AI, inequality is already a big problem for many of the countries like United States and China and many other places in the world. So when people talk about productivity gains using AI, many people, especially for those ones who are actually from the large AI companies, they are systematically ignoring one of the key facts is that the productivity gain for different cohorts of people are going to be unequal. Some of the part of the labor force, they are going to have a lot of gains due to AI technology. Some of them, they are going to have some gains, but not that much. And that's something we have to pay attention to, is that the inequality is going to be amplified to a great extent because of artificial intelligence. The second concept that labor economists always talk about is the so-called frictions. The economic systems in the long run, we're going to say that, well, we're going to create new jobs. We're going to have, these people are going to get new skills and so on and so forth. But guess what? A 40-year-old people, a father of 2 children, if he lost his job for 6 months, there's going to be a huge problem for him and his family. And these kind of frictions, I think, would be very, very critical social problems. That could create such a big problems in the face of AI. I mean, many people are just becoming replaceable or replaced by AI agents. Their jobs are going to get replaced. The Hong Kong, jobs that the junior jobs available to business school students, for example, 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic was somewhere around 25,000 a year, and now it's around 1/3 of that. Okay, so this dramatic decrease of the openings, partially because of AI, is just putting a very dangerous signal to our labor force and the employment. Yeah, so that's what I want to add to this.
The gains are certainly unevenly distributed. The World Bank recently came out with a report where they estimated that approximately 1.2 billion young people will enter the workforce in developing and emerging economies in the next 10 years. And in developing and emerging economies, these are economies that don't have data centers, don't have AI projects and huge capital investment, don't have hyperscaler companies that are listed on their stock exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So the question would be, what are these 1.2 billion young people going to do? They're not all going to be entrepreneurs. Not everyone's born to be an entrepreneur. Maybe that's a good time. I think we've got a couple of minutes, so we open for 1 or 2 questions from the floor. Please raise your hand if you have a question for the panel. The good news is you've answered everyone's questions. Cheng Li has a question.
Do we have a microphone?
Use one on the table.
Okay. Well, really excellent presentation, cover a lot of very interesting areas. We are in a university. This panel is about AI and economics. So you already covered the issues about discipline, about jobs, about market. I want to directly ask you how current teaching in the economic fields, you think it's behind what happened in the market? How to change that? Or you think maybe it's fine and no problem at all? So because 2 of you are professors, but very much engaged with the market. And Li Dan is in the market, but you certainly receive a lot of students. So from your perspective, what's the inadequacy in our education in the field of economics?
Yeah. Well, I think human beings are facing a challenge and also a very huge opportunity because starting from agricultural civilization to industrial civilization to intelligent civilization, as we call it. It's a leap. It's not an evolvement. It's a leap from stage 2 to stage 3. And then I think that's a fraction or a big fraction that prevent us moving forward because of our education system based on the industrialization period. Our organization itself is also made by that period. If you look at the organization, all the works are working in series, not working in parallel. That means if it's just like assembly line. The assembly line always has a bottleneck, and that prevent us to make our work more efficient. That prevent us to be more collaborate with our colleagues. And for example, in our company, we are trying to transfer that kind of mindset for work, from work in series to work in parallel. Work in parallel with colleagues, work in parallel with AI, because first of all, AI can complete all the details for you. And secondly, AI can do all the alignment between different modules. So that means your efficiency, theoretical efficiency, can jump like 5 to 6 times if we compress everyone just work together for the same goal. So and then I think at this stage, what we need is those students really have very proactive learning capabilities, because the world is changing so fast, and then the knowledge itself does not really matter. And then how to solve a problem does not really matter, because in the end, AI will solve all the problems. What is really matter is if you can ask great questions, and if you have a great curiosities, and if you can move forward. So people will become more a generalist than specialist, because specialists deal with details. In Chinese, we have a saying called 君子不器. Yeah, I think that's the same thing. So I think human being, we're looking at like a renaissance for humanity, because the industrialization make us all inhuman in some ways, make us a tool. And then I say AI will inspire the good side of, our humanities. And especially because AI time period is after internet and mobile internet. Internet and mobile, the business model is really using the better side of all humanities. For example, the short videos, this capture all attentions. Your attention should be focused on human beings, or should focus on beautiful things, but now you're focusing on those, trash. So yeah, I think maybe we have to jump out of that weird circle. And I think there are a lot of potentials in our humanities that we haven't uncovered yet, and we should not underestimate ourselves.
Cheng, I'll give a blunt observation on your question, and that is that AI is moving at the speed of technology companies, and universities tend to move at the speed of committees. And that desperately needs to change if the universities are to remain relevant at the undergraduate level in particular, in terms of producing undergraduates that have the skills that the marketplace needs for many, many universities. Not for all, but for many.
Yeah, so I just want to put a quick answer to Professor Li Chen's question. This is actually a great question, because we are educators, okay? And in the past, many past years, many people ask me, AI is so powerful. Why do we need social science? Why do we need business school? My answer to this is that we need it desperately. We need more. We need better social science educations. And in the past, the way that we teach our students was that we're focusing a lot of the efforts to teach them to master those skills, those techniques. For example, economic models, how to derive them, how to do those techniques. I think that's no longer important at all, because AI can do all the derivation and so on and so forth. And we need to focus on teaching them the real economic insight. We need to teach them the real idea of what's economics and how do you interpret or apply economics to real problems. And that kind of economic minds is something that we need to build. And I think this has a great value in the AI era. Okay.
Will, did you want to add anything to close?
No, I think that's a great point.
Thank you. We're at an end. I'm told I'm getting the red flag from Melly, so I have to cease and desist here. Would you join me, please, in thanking our excellent panel, Dr. Will Wang,
Dr. Laura Ye, and Mr. Li Loda.
Please take your seats. We're going to start the next panel immediately. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Now let's begin our second panel. My name is Tony Zhao Xiuyi. I'm a postdoc fellow at Center for Contemporary China in the World. So since our last panel finished on this really promising message of replacing 1.2 billion people out of jobs, I think this is a perfect segue for us to move into the topic of our next session, which is AI and political science. Because in schools, we've learned that political systems and governments are supposed to be there to fix the negative externalities of technological advancements and economies. And politics is becoming a factor that's having grown importance and impact on the economy, financial markets, as well as industries. And as political scientists, I think this is both a very exciting and challenging time because artificial intelligence is changing the way we think about politics and research on political science. So today, we are very fortunate to have three distinguished panelists join us today. To my immediate left, we have Professor Wang Zhenyu, who is an associate research fellow at the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences and co-founder and CEO of AlgoRain. His work focuses on the intersection of artificial intelligence, political science, digital governance, and computational social science. And I would say he's also just finished his tenure here at CCCW as our visiting scholar on the Spark Lab project. And he is really the leader in our Center for Artificial Intelligence Empowerment, who has helped us build the infrastructure and the capacity to really utilize artificial intelligence in our daily research. So welcome, Professor Wang. And next, sitting in the middle is Professor Angela Zhang, who is the professor of law at the University of Southern California, and also she's a CCCW non-resident senior fellow. She's a leading scholar of Chinese tech regulation, antitrust law, platform governance, and AI regulation. Her research examines how states regulate big tech and emerging technologies, with particular attention to China's regulatory systems, global AI governance, and US-China technological competition. And she also has practical experience in the legal field on this matter. So welcome, Professor Zhang. And to my far left is Professor Zhang Kaiping, who is Associate Professor of Political Science at Tsinghua University, and she's newly appointed the Associate Dean of School of Social Science at Tsinghua University. And she's also the Director of Center for Data Governance. Her research covers Chinese politics, political communication, deliberative democracy, digital governance, and computational social science. She studies how digital technologies and AI reshape governance, citizen participation, public deliberation, and state-society relations. So to start our panel, I would have each panelist first give a brief opening remark, and then I will move into questions, moderate discussion, and then I will open the floor to the public. So now let's first welcome Professor Wang Zhenyu to give his opening remark.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for inviting me, distinguished Professor Chen. It is my privilege to be here and HKU to join this important panel to talk about the AI imperative in political science. And let me start with the AI for science. And in his Nobel Prize lecture, the CEO of DeepMind Health Service articulate with Euro precision with why certain issues is so well settled for AI. They share three properties: a massive combinational search space, a clearly defined objective function, and the availability of abundant data, or an accurate simulator. And this is profoundly important observation because in many natural science challenges, despite an astronomically large search space, there are usually underlying hidden structure and we can find them. And the problem may be extraordinarily difficult, but it possesses a stable, a fixed objective. AI for science can often functions by reverse engineering these hidden structures within nature systems and through the exploration of vast best possibility spaces. So the natural question for this room is, does the same logic apply to us, apply to our social science? My answer is not directly. And that gap is the most important thing that I would like to say today. Political science, as Professor Chen has mentioned before, studies people, studies organizations, and studies the political parties and the states. These are actors with intentions, with emotions, with fears, and the capacity of strategic calculation. They do not passively obey nature laws. They create their certain laws. They interpret their environment. They react to predictions, and sometimes they alter the very system that we are modeling. There is no stable objective function. And what is a citizen seeking through the act of a certain vote, policy change, or the value expression, or emotional protest? The answer is always a combination. So the three conditions that Hassabis identified, fixed objectives, verifiable ground truth, and a stable simulator or accurate big data, does not exist in our social science world. So this is, however, this is not a limitation for which we should apologize. It is a defining condition of the social world. Social systems are evolutionary systems formed by actions driven by human subjective intentions, and in which causal relationships are inherently unstable. So the first is the acceleration scientific loop can be created in the imperative of political science. The traditional research circle in political science, from theory to observation, from testing and back to theory, turns painfully slowly. We may need 5 or 6 years to find a really right solution or observation of certain political phenomenon. The rigorous process behind the research can become accelerated by AI agents if we use our AI systems wholly in our research progress. At CCW, our study of asymmetric decision-making, as Professor Chen mentioned before, we have found that AI agents can systematically label this legislative text, code variables whose meaning shift from partisan and institutional contexts, and structure the data pipeline that fed into multiple machine learning models they can run in parallel. What would have required for a year of manual encoding across political scientists, area specialists, and data scientists was compressed into a replicable, scalable workflow, and with the output packaged directly into a geopolitical decision support system. And this is a new path from empirical science to actionable application. And the second, and perhaps more profound, is a large language model can serve as a world simulator. LLMs constitute the largest and most dimensionally rich of human social experiments have ever assembled. Guided by theoretical frameworks and contextual prompts, they can simulate how diverse actors perceive situations, form preference, and choose actions, and making them potential simulators for general social systems. They can capable of theory-grounded prediction of how the world behaves under different conditions. So together, these two opportunities define what I can call intelligent social science. These are emerging paradigm that uses data generated by these AI agents, and we use them to explain and predict human actions. This can create new scientific loop from knowledge processing to decision application. By leveraging LLMs as general social system simulators rigorously anchored in social science theory. If AI for science helps humanity understand and transform the natural world, then the AI for social science must help us understand and transform humanity itself. As Professor Mao has said, AI may change the laws of physics, and AI for social science should change the AI of the laws of our knowledge. And Keynes once said, when the fact change, I change my mind. And what do you do, sir? But for far too long, our social scientists are trained to defend our positions rather than to revise ourselves. But today, when AI-driven research itself can become an agentic workflow, which is reusable and testable and embedded in real-world decision-making, AI agent may help us change our minds and force our to 实事求是. Okay, thank you for your time and attention.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Wang. And next, we have Professor Angela Zhang, who will be giving her speech with presentation. Professor Zhang, please.
Yeah. Hi, hello. So first of all, I realize how important today's event is because it actually saved my life. Because Professor Ma Yi said that those who only rely on social media for their understanding of AI are doomed. Okay, and I'm the prophetic scholar who rely almost exclusively my understanding of AI from Twitter and Elon Musk tweets. Okay, and worse than that, because I'm a very busy mom, so I don't have much time in front of the screen. So I rely on most of the information on podcasts. Okay, so that's worse than just reading the tweets. And the second thing is, I just learned that Professor Ma Yi students at Berkeley can earn $10 million upon graduation. So that implies how much he could have earned had he joined Meta. And he chose to come back to work for Hong Kong U. And that shows how special this place is, right? I mean, it is a true treasure and a privilege to be with these highly, intellectual scholars who really pursue knowledge rather than just pure money. Okay, so the much higher social, achiever. Okay, and the third thing is that as you know, I am my background is law. Right, I'm a lawyer and I'm a law professor, and you know where I stand because my business is to regulate. Okay. And what Professor Ma Yi thinks he's gone, so I can say something. His business is not to regulate. Leave me alone, okay? Because otherwise he can't do his science. And you can tell very clearly from his speech that, look, I mean, Anthropic is pathetic in doing what they asked for, right? But I think actually, it's not necessarily a bad idea to regulate these models, right? I mean, and in fact, I even shamelessly published an op-ed piece after Mythos has arrived. I said, the global AI threat has arrived. So to summarize that piece, I basically said that before AI killed us, we will kill each other, with weapons like Mythos. Now, in my precious time today, 5 minutes, I want to even more shamelessly continue this conversation by introducing you my latest work. I call it the 6th layer. Why do I call it the 6th layer? It's because Jensen Huang is a foodie and he compared the AI stack to a 5-layer cake. But I want to add one more layer, and that is law. Okay. Again, coming from a very self-interested perspective. Okay. Now, as you can hear from Professor Ma Yi's talk, he basically wants to be left alone, right? I mean, I don't want law to touch any of those. I want deregulation, and that's consistent with the industry's, general perspective. But what I'm saying here that we need to distinguish between generative AI and physical AI, when we talk about AI, okay? And this paper, basically what I argue is, look, I understand with generative AI, if you regulate this thing, it's going to hold back development. Right? This is precisely what happened to Fable, right? I mean, now nobody can use it, right? But things are different when it comes to physical AI, okay? Because without law, you cannot enable this technology, right? So why is law so important for physical AI? For 3 reasons. First is that physical AI, if you think about the most quintessential example, is autonomous driving. Like, can we allow a fully driverless car on the street without changing a current law? The answer is no, because no existing law would allow you to drive the car on the street without a human being, right? So for instance, in the United States, now currently hundreds of thousands of laws need to be updated to accommodate driverless car, right? So that's the first thing, legal authorization. You need to change the law to enable the technology. The second thing is data, right? Now, in the generative AI era, you basically scrap the entire internet, right? I mean, it's not easy, but they did it, right? Without regard to intellectual property. But with physical AI, it's much more complicated, right? Because physical AI relies on the training depends on interactions, right? You need to interact with the real world. And that's really difficult to collect the data, right? You see Elon Musk, for instance, hiring hundreds of people to, carry all these very heavy gadgets and with many sensors because they need to collect the sensor data, the mobility data, and it's way more expensive and time consuming to collect the data. So data aggregation is much more difficult than generative AI. And that's why law is important, because law can coordinate the data collection process because data is so expensive. And lastly, the third thing is that physical AI requires the integration of a very highly complex hardware system, right? Think about a humanoid robot, right? You have the skeleton system, like Professor Mayi also talked about the upper body, right? The brain, right? And also the muscles, right? The actuators and the locomotion system, right? You have all these things integrate seamlessly together. And again, you need government coordination and standard setting to make this happen, right? So to give you an example, right? I mean, think about robotaxi, right? Waymo actually started experimenting in 2016, and Baidu, came in, 6 years later. But right now, you can see robotaxi have proliferated all over China. Currently, more than 20 Chinese cities, you can see, robotaxis on the street. And so far in the United States, there are currently only 6 cities where you see commercialization of robotaxis, right? Why? It's because the Chinese government are more permissive for this kind of simulation. They are more lenient with the legal experimentation. They're more proactive with legislation, right? That's why you need law. Second thing is standardization, right? If you think about humanoid robot, we are at the infancy stage. And at this point, it's very important to get the industry together, right? So in April this year, the Chinese, industry standard setting body have released a systematic standard for humanoid robot. They basically gather over 120 organizations, including industry leaders, academics, everybody together. Basically, we organize a study group. Let's figure it out. How do we make our supply chain more efficient by standardizing the basic, things in creating humanoid robot, right? So now our humanoid robot even have an ID. This is the first in the world, right? So don't underestimate the efforts of the Chinese government in standardization. And lastly, I talk about, the data collection. The data is so important, right? And China has imposed very strict data control, right? And in the past few years, because of the Chinese economic slowdown, China actually have trying to make the cross-border data transfer easier. However, not in the automobile sector, because this is such an important strategic area. You see, actually, the Chinese government has tightened control of auto data transfer. And that has created a disadvantage for firms like Tesla to compete with indigenous player like Xiaomi, right? I mean, you saw last year, Xiaomi has surpassed Tesla in terms of sales, and partly because Xiaomi have caught up and its driverless system has become, very good. But even Tesla have very good FSD. However, it's not familiar with the Chinese road because it cannot send the data it collects in China, despite having over 2.5 million vehicles in China. They cannot send it back to Texas to train its model. So it become a very, it could be an excellent driver without any familiarity of the Chinese road, right? So this created a very powerful, I call, state engineer deployment-driven cost and data flywheel, right? I mean, the law can stimulate the deployment, and the law can also unify the standard, right? And fortifies its competitive mode, and not just to accumulate more data, but also to reduce costs, right? Because as you see, when it comes to Chinese robotics, what is the biggest advantage? It's cheap, okay? And why is it so cheap? Every year it's cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And because of this flywheel that we are talking about, a law plays a pivotal role in coordinating this. So if you're interested, I mean, this paper is free for download, and you can find out more information online. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang, for giving us a quick and comprehensive overview of the impact of regulatory systems on AI development in China. Next, we have Professor Zhang Kaiping for her brief remarks. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First, thank Professor Li Cheng for putting together this fascinating event. So as someone who graduated from Stanford Communication, and after hearing Professor Ma Yi's keynote speak, I also feel, well, you know how I feel. But being able to join this great event and engaging with such a fascinating audience make me feel it's worth it to some extent, to a large extent. So I wanted to begin with a confession. So the question, the puzzle I'm raising today, how AI is transforming information, politics, and governance, is probably a much bigger puzzle that I can cover in 7 minutes. So what I do hope to do is instead to raise this conversation, to raise a set of puzzles that I believe our social scientists will need to engage with in the next few years. So I would like to briefly discuss 3 issues in my 7 minutes. First, how AI is transforming the information environment in which we are communicating, learning, and forming attitudes. The second one is how do these transformations mean for politics and governance? And the third, what they imply for political science research and social scientists, and how our theories, concept, our research agenda might evolve in response to these changes. So let me begin with the first question. So how is AI reshaping the information environment? So for the most time of the history, technologies served primarily as channels that transmitted messages between humans. Human actors produce messages, and then all the media channels, including radio, newspaper, television, social media platforms, they transmit messages and audiences receive them. And in Laswell, so his classic formulation, it means who says what to whom, through which channels, and what effect. But back then, technologies only occupied one position in this chain. But right now, artificial intelligence is no longer one single channel. It increasingly occupies all dimensions of our communication process. AI can be the communicator. It generates videos, messages, recommendations. And AI can be the content. So people consume AI generated information rather than like human produced information. Before I came to Hong Kong, I asked the AI to give me a suggestion. If I arrive one day before the event, where should I go? Instead of asking the hotel front desk. And AI can also be the channel. It filters, ranks, and recommends, distributes information. AI can be part of the audience as machine agents are actively consuming what we tell them. And lastly, AI can shape communication effects. It really impacts what people see, how they feel, and ultimately what they believe and how they behave. So as a result, I argue that AI is simultaneously becoming an information infrastructure, a cognitive infrastructure, communication infrastructure, and ultimately a power infrastructure for our society. So since AI is becoming embedded throughout the entire communication system, so I argue that we are entering an AI synthetic information ecosystem. So at the macro level, communication takes place with an AI embedded information system. And at the meso level, communication networks no longer are composed of politicians, news media, journalists, citizens, influencers, citizens. And AI is becoming one of the most important communicators. And at the micro level, communication takes the form of human-AI interaction, and it's hyper-personalized information flow, meaning that so information moves through recursive like cycles of generation, feedback, and revision regeneration. So this transformation has profound implications because the environment through which people form knowledge, attitudes, values, and opinions are actually changing. So think about the histories. So throughout the history, all political authorities, their legitimacy really depend on the ability to shape the information environment. Traditionally, those processes these roles were taken by institutions like schools, families, mass media, political elites, and social organizations. Like back then in 1963, there is a very famous scholar, Carl Deutsch, described communication system as the nerve of the government. Just as the human nerve system enables like perception, learning, coordination, adaptation, and information flow, like enables our political system to think, to learn about people's demand, to respond, to analyze, and make collective decisions. But think about what happens when the nerve system of our government and our society change. What does that mean? So today, as AI becomes embedded within the communication infrastructure of our society, it also becomes embedded within the information foundation of governance itself. So as a result, so I argue that power is being reconfigured. So influence has shifted from traditional media elites to platforms, influencers, and now increasing toward who controls the data, the model, the computational resources, the intelligent infrastructures. At the same time, our public sphere is also evolving. It evolved from a unified mass public to more fragmented networked echo chambers, then toward a more AI synthetic public sphere. And so, like, while we observe the power, social power has been decentralized since the arrival of internet and social media, AI might bring us a new phase of re-centralization of power. So since it really heavily depends on material foundation, data centers, computational powers, so on and so forth. So like in the 20th century, like power might depended on controlling the information, the media. But in the 21st century, it increasingly depends on controlling the intelligent infrastructure, and the politics of communication is becoming the politics of infrastructure. So for scholars, these transformations really raise a set of questions. The first is information integrity, trust, and accountability. So how do AI-generated narratives really influence information authenticity, institutional trust, and democratic accountability? And second one, AI as a new political actor, what does it mean for our real world politics? So how do human and machine actors jointly shape public attitudes, opinions, voter preferences? And lastly, to what extent do AI systems reproduce, amplify, or mitigate our social and ideological biases? And how do different political systems really regulate and deploy AI communication infrastructures? And like how will competition over data, models, computational resources reshape our global politics? And what are the risks of deploying AI in high-stake political decision-making? So these developments really raise profound questions for us about information integrity, about political influence, digital sovereignty, and more broadly, they really force us to rethink some of the most fundamental concepts in political science, from power to legitimacy, representation, accountability, and governance itself. So I'll stop there. Thank you for your attention and really look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. I originally planned for 3 questions for our 3 panelists, but considering that you have both answered my 2 questions very comprehensively, and considering the time that I want to leave one opportunity for the audience to ask questions, I'm going to only ask 1 question, I think, for all panelists to answer, and then we'll open up the floor for the audience. So my question is, when AI first came out, I initially thought, wow, this is really going to be really tough for social science students, because it seems like everybody has to know coding to use technology. But the more I use it, the more I feel like, oh, this is really empowering us who don't know too much about coding. I don't have to learn that much about coding. I don't have to learn that many techniques. I can have AI do it for me and really be much more efficient and productive in conducting the research questions that I think important. So all of you are seasoned researchers and educators of political science. So I think my question that goes to all of you is that in your teaching and research and experience, what aspects do you find artificial intelligence the most disruptive and also the most empowering during your research and educating or teaching experience in terms of the discipline? Let me start with Professor Wang Junyu.
Thank you, Tony. It's a really good question. I have same feeling just like you, but I think the most interestingly is the most disruptive and the most empowering part come from the same thing. AI is now eroding the disciplinary boundaries across the social science. However, we are educated and trained by the way this following these boundaries. So I think the most important competence of current education or current research is we know what's the limitation and the strength of AI and how we can divide the work properly between the AI and ours. And the most important thing is the AI is developing and changing fast, but our academic frameworks for deploying all the methodological techniques cannot keep the pace. I think it's a challenge both for our teachers and for the students and for future higher education and research.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Professor Wang. Like Richard was saying in the previous panel, either the AI companies have to really slow down or the university committees have to really speed up, right?
Yes.
to match,
yes,
there has to be a match. Now, please, Professor Angela Chen.
Yeah, I very agree because I took up a lot of time just now. I would say the biggest impact on me is I don't need to use any research assistant anymore.
All right, it's my turn. So the most empowering aspect, I think I might have graduated 2 years early if ChatGPT came out early when I was doing PhD. I think 1 year might be like how much time I spent to learn about coding, fixing all the bugs. And 1 year might be the writing and proofreading. I spent a lot of time, going to the writing centers and, make sure my non-native speaker writing achieves that academic standard of a good dissertation. So if GPT comes early, I might graduate 2 years earlier. But when I think about what my graduate students might do, they still have 4 years to spend in the graduate school. What they should do if they have so much power given by the AI. So what I do is I really encourage them to go to the field to learn about the society. So we are social science researchers. We do not, just analyze the data. We feel the society. We discover the questions, problems, of what our society is facing from our field research. So I encourage them to take time to go to the field, to be a curious learner, to be a passionate researcher, to ask the real questions from the real people, not asking AI. I think that's the empowering part of the ChatGPT or AI.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. I agree. I think the human interaction part is the most valuable and irreplaceable part of social sciences because it does deal with real humans in real society in a real physical world, and that's not going to be replaced by AI. So again, please join me in giving a round of applause to all the three panelists. And now the floor is open to the audience. Yes, that lady in the back. Yeah, you start, please. Yeah, and then next.
Thank you so much for the panel. It's really wonderful having this discussion on AI and commerce. I think today, because our topic is about we have been talking a lot about the gap between the academia and also policymaker and lawmakers, and right now entrepreneurs and business. So I think one thing, Professor Angela Zhang, you mentioned about interoperability on the governors. And I'm curious, you're talking about the autonomous car. So how are the enterprises or companies motivated to share the data or to increase the interoperability, especially when it comes to law and governors, right? Is there any motivation from the governor side or from the law side that can make the different companies sit down together and say, hey, let's work something out? Especially, with China, which is kind of, we have a very, very special system where we are very united and we have, pouring a lot of focus on making things happen. So I'm very curious, how can we, make the private and public sector, let's say, work together to have that standards, especially considering the two sectors have a very different pace, they have a different cycle, they have a different framework to evaluate of their output of their work. Thanks.
Right. Look, I mean, the Chinese standard setting, it's very different from the US system. And for the most part, however, the government plays a pivotal role. The vast majority of standards are voluntary, they're not mandatory. However, we do see that companies try to comply with these standards. Like the humanoid robot, for instance, right? I mean, we said that this is at a very early stage of development, right? I mean, Professor Ma Yi said that we haven't figured out the upper part of the body, right? So what is China's main competitive advantage? It is cost, right? I mean, everybody wants to bring down the cost, and that's helped the diffusion and export. And so currently, China have over 140 humanoid robot company, and more than 330 different types of robots, right? I mean, so if we don't have the standard setting, right? I mean, it's going to be very chaotic, right? So we need to have some very basic things that are standardized, so that will significantly, reduce costs through the improving supply chain efficiency. I think that is incentive compatible among all the companies in the entire supply chain. And this is basically repeating the competitive, pattern you have seen in EV, right? I mean, battery, right? Renewable energy. Chinese government similarly have played a very important coordination role in, setting standards. And in fact, because China have done so well and now stuck at the frontier of setting standard, China is now de facto setting the global standard with the diffusion of its technology all over the world. Right? I mean, China is also very influential in international standard setting body. They actively participate in setting standards. Right? We see that with 5G, technology. Right? I mean, China have a big voice, and we now similarly see the emergence of this trend with autonomous driving, with humanoid robot. Right? I mean, so these will be the area China will have a great advantage. Yeah.
And the lady that's sitting next to her. Yeah.
You. Thanks for having this have us together. I do have a question. Oh yeah. My name is Mona Xu. I am probably a potential postdoc of CCW. So I would love to take this opportunity of because I'm seeing in the future how AI will reshape the society, the world, and especially after the open cloud comes out, and people are talking about like the colleagues get seen as colleague skills. For example, one of my friends that told me like, one of my colleagues gone. I'm really mad because if she got laid off, so nobody's gonna order bubble tea for us anymore. But the other day she got happy because she still received the bubble tea because the colleague got laid off, but the skills is still there. So the agentic AI has ordered the bubble tea for the colleagues. But that was the thing. Why I want to bring this up is that we're seeing the potential of how AI is going to replace some part of the society. It's not like, of course, AI is not going to replace any of us in this world, in this office, but we'll say for the.
I'm sorry, in the interest of time, please shorten your question.
For the junior middle class, we are seeing the potential of collapse and the gap of like how those people are, a lot of people are losing their jobs and the society are getting shaped. So we are saying what I'm thinking is reflecting the regulation part that Angela has bring up and some other impact that AI is going to bring up. So how do you, as this is question for all speakers, how do you think like how we can work on the political science side to reshaping when AI is reshaping the society, how we can regulate this and harness the developing of AI and utilize AI and make the world society better in a better way.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let me collect two more questions and then we'll have the final round of answers. Yes, Bruce, and is there another one? Okay, then yeah, Bruce, you start.
Very quick, Tony. Thank you. Really inspired by Dr. Angela Zhang. Really reflect on my alma mater's quote: "It's a loss without moral is useless." So my question is regarding to the moral grounds. So if I think of the AI and social science in two grounds, moral grounds. One is Jeffrey Hinton thinking AI as a technology is running horse, that we need to put the reins and trap and horse hacks on so it doesn't run out of control, which is the law and regulation. On the other end, the moral camp is by Elon Musk, thinking the running horse is running because it knows where the water is. That's it, essentially leading the humanity to singularity. So I want to ask all panelists, essentially thinking about moral and ethics in social science and AI, which ground, which camp do you believe in more? How do you compare contrast in those dynamism in the social science fields relating to moral ethics and ecological developments?
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
Hey, hi everybody. Thank you for the wonderful panelist speech. So in 2009, Arab Spring, the Brzezinski conclude that the internet make every individual on earth very hyper political aware. Now, as we observe, the internet plus the AI make every individual very easy to be politically manipulated. The Cambridge Analytica case already proved that. So I'm going to say the democracy is doomed. And what I want to ask you, do you think the meritocracy is the only solution in the AI age? Because you want to people's vote, and they are going to be manipulated by a small group of people who is powered by the LLM. So that's my question.
Okay, so we have how do we regulate AI for better social welfare, the moral case of AI development, and also AI meritocracy. Who would like to take the first shot?
Do you think that I can trust the morale of Elon Musk?
Okay, I trust in people. I believe in people's potential to improve the improvement of AI. we need to identify the limitation of AI. And the next agenda ahead of us is to find the limitation of AI and to change it. Let me introduce two papers in PNAS to you. In 2024, there is an article titled Can Generative AI Transform Social Sciences? This paper believes that large language models can be a world simulator, and we can predict the social phenomena, and we can better to avoid the disasters. And just last month, another paper called Evaluating the Statistical Realism of LLM. It shows that only 30% of the most advanced AI can reproduce the statistical pattern in our demographics and the social graph and the social science. So there's plenty room of our improvement in our relations and our collaboration with AI. And that's the most important agenda. But we think we need to help and defend our middle class or our students. But we need to focus on more about how to improve the correlations, the international cooperation of different countries and different elites in building a future. We are co-building with AI. That's my point.
Okay. Professor Zhang Kaiping, would you like to add some final points?
Yeah, these are all great questions. So I'll speak a bit on the AI meritocracy versus and democracy. I don't think like AI as a technology would lead to deterministic outcome for any political system. It really depends on how the political system adapts to the pros, advantages and the challenges of it. So definitely with AI, there's an increased risk for exposure to misinformation for everyone. But I do think there are opportunities for like people to consume like more knowledge. To engage in more relevant uses of AI to get more information, knowledge, which were not, that accessible back then in the, internet or social media age. And for the meritocracy question, like even though, AI can help decision makers to make like policies, but it also has the risk of turning all the decisions to just a few people, right? So I think definitely there are pros and cons. It really depends on how our political system embeds AI in our governance and to create transparent and accountable AI for the public welfare. Thank you.
Can I add one more sentence? So I came from USC. USC has a slogan. Oh wait, by the way, we are the school #1 party school in the United States. But we have a slogan called "Fight On." Okay, so don't lose hope on democracy. That was the whole point of today's panel. Okay, let's fight on. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, our three outstanding panelists for a really thought-provoking panel and your insights on AI and political science. Please join me in giving them another round of applause. Okay.
We're going to take a photo with all of our panelists and moderators.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, we have a little gift for you.